Waganagity, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Next, we will have a moment of silent contemplation. Thank you. Next, I would be looking for the approval of or amendments to the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Green.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Hebb. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion has carried. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of September the 28th, 2022 regular meeting of council and September 29th, 2022 special meeting of council. Moved by Deputy Warden Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Green. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. This brings us to the election of Deputy Warden. The term ends October of 2022. This will follow Council's procedural policy. Any councillor is eligible to be nominated for Deputy Warden. That includes Councillor Mitchell. We have no regulations saying that you can't serve more than one term. And I guess prior to going into it, I just wish anyone who has an interest the best of luck and give you a heads up that, as Councillor Mitchell or Deputy Warden Mitchell will tell you, I do lean on the Deputy Warden at times to cover events and help me out at times. So, having that, I would open the floor for nominations for the position of Deputy Warden for the next year. I see no lights lighting up, folks. Councillor, who was first? Oh gosh, just 1 second, my screen's not right. I had a screen, now I have a black screen, but so I can't turn the mics on. We'll just give Tom a minute to get here so I can. Oh, it's back. So, Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I'd like to nominate Deputy Warden Mitchell again.
You accept the nomination, Deputy Warden?
This was a question that was asked at home, so I'll accept again for another year.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Rhino.
Nominate Councillor Michael Perry.
Do you accept the nomination, Councillor Perry?
I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Oops, sorry, Councillor Mitchell.
Since Councilor Perry's interested, I'll withdraw mine. Acceptance?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir. Now, did I accidentally click anyone off when I was clicking the mics here? So are there any other nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, I declare nominations cease, and Deputy Warden Michael Perry, welcome. So our next item is correspondence for information. Councillors, this has been in front of you for a while. Is there any item, Councillor Mitchell?
Yes, I just want to thank Council for the opportunity to serve as Deputy Warden for a one-year term, and it was rewarding and enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, and in turn, I would thank you for your service. You carried out your duties well, and Anytime I called on you, you were there, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So you have in front of you correspondence for information. Is there any correspondence there that any counselor wishes to bring forward? Counselor Mitchell.
Yes, I'm looking at the one from the Caring and Sharing. Is anything planned this year towards that Caring and Sharing program, as in the past?
Alana?
Through you, Madam Warden, under last year's budget discussion, there was money committed via the GenGov grant program.
I've been told to remind people to speak into the microphones as such so that we can hear. Thank you.
And the Caring Sharing Food Bank, as well as a number of others, will be receiving $1,000. And it's the Community Development Coordinator is currently working on issuing those funds early in November so that they'll have that in time for the holiday season.
Thank you.
And would that be the same for the Hants North Food Bank and the other?
Through you, Madam Warden, yes, it would be. Each of the groups is to receive $1,000.
Yes, I see the letter from Miss Sweet about campgrounds in Selma area. I was wondering if anybody had any information on that, since that's an issue we were dealing with lately.
Yes, thank you, Warden. So it is, I guess, a complaint about a specific one and just the proliferation. So we did get back to the person that wrote to us and let them know that there are regulations coming through the plan update. And, if there's specific things under the community standards bylaw, we'll deal with them, but I wouldn't really want to get into that in open council.
Thank you. Anything else under correspondence for information? Seeing none, we will move to correspondence for decision. Oh, excuse me, Counselor Mitchell.
Yes, just the one that deals with the sidewalk, the crosswalk in Enfield. Do you expect to hear back and some progress on that before the new year?
Through Madam Warden, from experience, I would suggest that it's not likely that the municipality will hear back before the new year. This is a ministerial portfolio, and we're seeking a specific meeting to go over a topic that should be dealt at the staff level, but we needed to escalate to get to this point. I would suggest that there'll be a lot of questions internally discussed with first at a provincial level before they come in and talk with us. I would anticipate in the new year, but I have full confidence that they will respond.
So you're hoping that our MLA leads the charge on this one?
Through Madam Warden, this is a topic that the municipality has advocated to the Hants East MLA multiple iterations of that, multiple different people representing that position. Each honestly have been supportive of the municipality and have not been able to successfully get it through as a standing MLA, hence the approach going towards the minister this time. We're trying something different as municipality to get attention to the topic and the need. So the support is there. The endorsement is there from both current and previous MLAs. That's never been an issue with this topic.
Okay. So correspondence for decision. And we do have in front of us a draft for council decision for the survey around the municipal and housing, the MGA and the housing survey. Municipal Government Act, sorry. And the CAO.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The survey that's in front of you was put out by DMHA, Department of Municipality of Housing and Affairs. And they're working with a group of representatives from the NSFM and the AMA to review the MGA. Part of that is looking for feedback from municipalities on various topics, and this is the first such consultation directly from them. So what we've done, the directors and I have gone through this survey, answered as we thought you might want to answer. There are lots of options of how you can answer, but generally, the first part of the survey is around giving electronic notice versus putting notice in the newspaper, and just seeking feedback of whether the timing is right for, is 2 weeks' notice enough time for notice in the newspaper, that type of thing. So the recommendation that we've made to them is that council should be able to decide by policy when something should be put in a paper and when it should be, it satisfies it by putting it on the municipal website or social media, that type of thing. So that would allow councils to make their own decisions. In general, there's, the timing of notice is sufficient as far as we're concerned. Looking for your feedback on that. Enabling electronic delivery of tax bills. Currently, we have to send both if we send out. We certainly would recommend that, provided the person has authorized us to send their tax bill or their collection notices by email. There's a lot in here around planning documents and the submission of planning documents, for example, being done electronically, terms of development agreements, so enabling more items to be put into development agreements. One of the things that we've provided feedback on question 14 is around, we think we should be able to get open space contributions for multi-unit residential buildings, even where there's no subdivision. We should have allowance for that, because that is a driver certainly of open space requirements in an area. So we need your feedback on that if you have any. As well as we've had this conversation at council around off-site, page 7, off-site improvements for cash in lieu, for necessary to support development. So for example, if a development is driving the need for a new traffic signal, you should be able to charge that back to that development, or sidewalks, or whatever it is. So enabling that, again, this is all enabling legislation, not requiring not prescriptive legislation. And then there's things around non-substantial changes to development agreements, recommendations around, there's a lot of very specific development stuff here. Do we think, would we be interested in having this kind of enabling legislation, which we've said yes to most of these. The only one we've said no to was around performance bonding for site plan approvals. We personally, John, staff, and I didn't see a lot of benefit to that. As far as an enforcement tool, they are a lot of work to administer, so we don't feel the need for that. But if they put them in as enabling, then that would be okay. We probably would not use them at East Hants. And then on page 13, around site plan approvals, appeals. So we've run into this quite a few times. So being able to appeal one of the elements listed in the LUB, which is being considered under the site plan approval. Our recommendations are saying, we should be able to, they should give us criteria that's appealable, which in our case would be what's on the site plan approval. Instruments of subdivision, that's a planning technical issue. Retroactivity of deemed easements, again, we would think that would benefit municipalities. And the last few, selling or leasing property below market value. I know we've had this conversation quite often around this council. So just changes to the MGA to allow the municipality to sell below market value to increase the availability of affordable housing in the municipality. We think that would be enabling, and to another public entity. So if you wanted to sell to another level of government or agency, then for the purpose of building schools, roads, hospitals, that type of thing. And then under additional feedback, just looking at, again, putting that subdivision plans should be able to be done digitally. Right now, it's all very paper-based and quite cumbersome to do that. So we're moving towards that digital age, and I think the MGA should modernize and keep up to that. So that's the survey, a high-level overview of it. This is your survey to answer. One of the questions, and you'll note that the October 7th deadline, that was the initial deadline that was put out, and we had messaged them and requested, is this something you want individual councillors to respond to, or is it something you want councils to respond to as a whole? And they said councils. So we gave them the feedback that a 1 week turnaround is 2 week turnaround was not enough. So they've extended this until October 31st. But all that to say that this is your survey to respond to. So if there's feedback to the different questions, if you think we got it wrong, then we'd certainly take that feedback and incorporate it into the official survey response for the province.
Thank you, Kim. Councillor Tingley.
I have a question to staff through the chair regarding the performance bond issue that was raised. How do you deal with that? Through holdbacks or?
Through Warden, we don't. In a development agreement, the requirements are there. There's a timeline, and if a developer doesn't fulfill all those requirements, there are other enforcement actions we can take. We can go to court. We can discharge the development agreement. There are a lot of things that we can do as opposed to performance bonding.
Okay, I'd like to move that we respond to the survey as proposed by staff. I'll make that motion.
Do we have? Moved by Councillor Tingley, seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
A question's been called. And the motion is passed by, excuse me, a vote of 10-1, with Councillor Rhino voting nay. The next item under business or under correspondence for decision is a request from Mayor Pam Mood, Town of Yarmouth, asking municipalities to write letters of support for the CAT ferry services. And you have Mayor Mood's letter before you. I was not comfortable making an ad hoc decision on this without conferring with council. I do believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that since we received this letter, I believe that it's been indicated that the ferry will be running again next year and be reviewed at that time. Am I correct? That was my understanding. So what is your wish for Mayor Mood's correspondence? Okay, Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Warden. In today's newspaper, there was a commentary or an article talking about the Cat Ferry and the subsidized $17 million that the province has given to the ferry service, and making a suggestion that maybe the 17 million could be better spent supporting the seniors and people in need across the province of Nova Scotia. If you have a chance to read it, you can probably read it on Saltwire and form your own opinion, but some of his comments were pretty straightforward and food for thought. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Deputy Warden Perry?
Thank you, Madam Warden. I tend to agree with Councillor Mitchell, but also because the province has already indicated they're going to continue on with the CAT for the upcoming year, I would move that we reply to Mayor Pam Mood in the town of Yarmouth and say East Hants will monitor the situation if anything changes in the future and respond at that time.
Seconded by Councillor Mitchell. I have Councillor Rhino and Councillor Hebb, who were both on prior to the motion. Councillor Rhino.
I'll support the motion of the deputy warden, basically to put this on, on hold and review it possibly next year. I read that piece that Councillor Mitchell's talked about, and for a long time, I've not been a supporter of the subsidization of that Cat Ferry to that tune it is. They can't put tractor trailers on it like they used to. They won't do that. It's just been an ongoing struggle, moving ports and wharves. So I am not in favor of that ferry whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I won't be supporting the motion. A colleague of mine a number of years ago was talking to businesses in Yarmouth on another topic, and one of the things that was raised by pretty near every business there was the amount of business and tourism that stopped when the ferry stopped coming there. It was very devastating to some of them down there. Just recently this year, I talked to somebody who is a resident of a campground during the summer, and they commented that there was 2 vehicles came there across from the ferry, and one of them actually stayed here in East Hants and done some touring here for a couple of days. So I think it's very vital to Yarmouth, but it's also vital to East Hants and the rest of Nova Scotia. And the individual knew that there was 2 come across the ferry. There could have been a lot more, and that was just in one campground too. So I think putting a letter of support just kind of gives it that much more impact to the town of to the town of Yarmouth to keep this ferry going. So I'll not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, can you please put the motion up again? Or put the motion up?
I believe the motion is to follow next season as the province intends to do and monitor the situation, and perhaps to write a letter to Pam Mood indicating that we're not sending a letter of support at this time, that we will monitor the season next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Question.
Yeah, the question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed by a vote of 9-2, with Councillor McPhee and Councillor Hebb voting nay. And that, I believe, concludes correspondence for decision. Next on our agenda is the ratification of the Nova Scotia Health lease. at the Lloyd E. Matheson Center. I will turn it over to the Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Warden. Ratification for the Nova Scotia Health lease at the Lloyd E. Matheson Center. Council previously gave direction to staff during an in-camera session as part of the June 21st, 2022 Executive Committee meeting to enter into a new lease agreement with Nova Scotia Health at the Lloyd E. Matheson Center. The negotiation was successful and aligned with in-camera direction. The lease can be ratified. From that, we move that Council ratify the in-camera direction given to staff at the June 21st, 2022 Executive Committee meeting to enter into a 5-year lease agreement with the Nova Scotia Health at the Lloyd E. Matheson Center ending July 14th, 2027. The lease includes a 5-year option to renew adjusted by Consumer Price Index. As Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next, we will move to the Corporate and Residential Services Committee report. Over to you, Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on October 18th, 2022 in Council Chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of this meeting. Presentation from the East Hants Family Resource Center. Kathy McDonald, Executive Director of the East Hants Family Resource Center, gave a presentation on the programs offered by the organization. The Corporate and Residential Service Committee recommends that Council direct staff to look at increasing the grant for the Community Partnership Fund for the East Hants Family Resource Center in the next budget review. As Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Biannual review of chairs and vice chairs. The chair and vice chair positions were reviewed and changes suggested while other positions remain unchanged. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends to Council the current chairs and vice chairs who wish to continue to stay in place for another 2 years and the following new chairs and vice chairs be approved. Nominating Councillor Green as vice chair. Planning and Advisory Committee, Councillor or Deputy Warden, former Deputy Warden Mitchell as chair, Councillor McPhee as vice chair. Infrastructure and Operations Committee, Councillor Garden Cole as chair. Fences and Arbitration, Councillor Hebb as chair, Councillor Green as alternate. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on these committee chair changes? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Next on the list is Bylaw F100-8, Amendments to Local Improvement Bylaw. This will be dealt with later in the meeting. New Asset Retirement Obligation PSAB 3280 Policy. The Public Sector Accounting Board has issued a standard that imposes legal obligation on municipalities to retire a tangible capital asset. As a result, a policy has been drafted to stipulate that the accounting treatment for these asset retirement obligations. From that, the Corporate and Residential Service Committee recommends that Council approve the Asset Retirement Obligation Council Policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated 18 October 2022. As Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you, Warden. New recognition policy and repeal of related policies. Municipality of East Hants provides multiple types of recognition to residents, fire services, business, and other volunteers. The draft recognition policy unifies the various forms of recognition into one policy that would result in the repeal of 5 current policies. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that Council approve the proposed recognition policy with the addition of potential annual recognition for birthdays after the age of 75 and repeal the following policies. The policy to recognize significant individuals with keys to the municipality, municipal PIN policy, recognition for support of fire emergency services policy, policy to recognize significant occasions in the lives of East Hants residents, and recognition of achievement. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by, I believe, Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion? Counselor Rhino.
Yes, I have a problem with the wording of the motion. It says potential annual recognition for birthdays after the age of 75. Usually birthday recognitions is held by other forms of government and held on five-year increments. The way this reads is you could give a certificate for 76, you couldn't for 75. And I don't know if that was the intent or not, but it says after the age of 75. So I would move that, an amendment to that would say for 75 and above.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Counselor Musa has seconded the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Question.
Question's been called on the amendment. And the amendment has passed unanimously. Now, for the amended motion, is there any discussion on the amended motion?
Question.
Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Deputy Warden.
During the creation of the PACE program, discussion was held with the possibility of a similar program for well and septic systems. The policy analyst provided the preliminary information and options for a program. The Corporate Residential Services Committee recommends that Council direct staff to pursue more information on a possible loan program for well and septic systems similar to the PACE program. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded by Counselor Rhino. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion has carried. Next on our agenda is the Planning Advisory Committee report. My agenda shows Counselor Green giving that report. Are you prepared to give that? When do we move to the new chairs, I guess is my question.
Told me next month.
Okay. Counselor Green.
Including low, medium, and high-density residential development and open space. Approximately 1,439 residential units are proposed. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to schedule an open house and a public information meeting to consider an application from FH Development Group Incorporated to amend the MPS and LUB by changing the land use designation and zone of PID number 450-89802 to Walkable Comprehensive Development District, and to consider entering into a development agreement with FH Development Incorporated for PID number 450-89802 to permit a mixed-use master plan development. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Before we go back to Counselor Green, there still appears to be a problem with his mic. If someone could move Counselor Perry's mic in that direction, that might help. Yes.
Item number 2. The municipality has received an application from Chris Marchand to redesignate and rezone a portion of property in East Uniacke from rural use zone to established residential neighborhood R1 zone. This application requires a change in the land use designation. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give first reading and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing to consider a proposal for a portion of PID number 451-43237 to change the designation from rural use RU to established residential neighborhood ER and the zone from rural use to established residential neighborhood. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion has passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Green.
Item 3, Plan 22-006, Raymar Developments Limited, redesignation and rezoning Mount Uniacke. The municipality has received an application from Raymar Development Limited to redesignate and rezone a portion of property in East Uniacke from rural use RU zone to country residential CR zone to enable the development of a low-density subdivision. This application requires a change in the land use designation. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give first reading and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing to consider a proposal for PID number 451-57054 to change the designation and zone from rural use RU to country residential CR. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? You ready for the question?
Question.
Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Green.
Item 4, Plan Update Background Paper, Public Gravel Roads. As part of the ongoing plan update, staff are preparing background papers to discuss and propose approaches to different land use issues within the municipality. The CAO has requested the planning staff prepare a report to look at the cost comparison of maintenance of public gravel roads compared to public paved roads and request the PAC consider if gravel roads should still be available as an option for developers. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to maintain the current regulations that permit the construction of new municipal gravel public roads at this time, but to bring back a report addressing some of the discussion held here today around what regions it might be appropriate or not, and under what circumstances it might be appropriate to prohibit gravel roads. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Counselor Musa.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. John, there was discussion about boundaries and the people, they don't, like most councilors, they don't want road to be separating like gross area management area from And I know some roads are separating in Mount Uniacke, so on one side you have to pave, on the other side you don't, like Mackenzie Lane and stuff. So is there any way we can change those boundaries a little bit around to make sure that this won't happen? Because it doesn't feel right to have one side of the road have to pave if they want to subdivide and the other half don't.
Over to you, John.
Through you, Warden. So if there's subdivision on a road, and I guess let's say the left side is within the growth management area, that is where the boundary is. I guess we could move it. And that could be done through a plan update. That you need to amend the municipal planning strategy to do that. So it's a bigger deal than just a zone change, but it could be done. I'm not thinking of any specific circumstances I'm aware of where that's the case, where a road is actually the boundary for the growth management area, but I guess that could be reviewed at some future date.
Mackenzie Lane, it separate the growth management area from the other area. And I knew a subdivision was going there, but because of the pavement, we end up with flag lots down there. So it's not what we want to see. So if we could, in a future area, like when we do like the plan upgrade, to remove those, like not having a road as a boundary. Thank you.
Anyone else? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to bring back a report reviewing the paving petition policy and possible incentives options for both developers and residents to pave their current public gravel roads. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Green.
Item 5, open space disposal, PID number 453-54677, Meadowview Way. Staff are requesting the council consider PID number 453-4677, Meadowview Way, Belknap, be classified as a surplus open space. An opportunity has arisen for the municipality to dispose of the open space land parcel in order to improve connectivity in an existing subdivision. The parcel in question is within 600 meters of an existing developed neighborhood park and playground. Funds from the disposal will be reinvested into other open space lands. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give consideration to the disposal of the open space parcel identified as PID number 453-54677, Meadowview Way, Belknap, to enable the subject property to be disposed of through the disposal of surplus property policy, to allow for increased connectivity within the Garden View development. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Musa. Councillor Mitchell.
Yes, just a quick question through the staff. Do the funds that are received, can they be used anywhere in the municipality, or are they allocated to that area?
Through you, Madam Warden, I believe they would actually be allocated to the open space funds in that area versus the entire municipality.
Thank you.
Councillor Rhino.
Yes, through you to staff. Has there been any discussion with the residents in both those subdivisions to see if they want connectivity?
Alana? Oh, sorry. John.
Through you, Warden, no, but there is a public consultation component to the process, so that I think would come out in that process.
So this, if I may, this is strictly a staff assignment, or for lack of better words, this is staff initiative?
I'm not quite sure I heard it. What were you asking? Is this a staff initiative, Warden? Yeah, it was. When we saw this development proposal come in, we thought it could be a lost opportunity to provide that connectivity. And when we discussed with the open space folks, it seemed like that property is never, or very low likelihood it would ever be developed as a park. So it seemed an opportunity to put the two together.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, the question has been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed by a margin of 10-1, with Councillor Rhino voting nay. Back to you, Councillor Green.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by, I believe, Councillor Mitchell. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Next, we will go to the Parks, Rec, and Culture Committee report. Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on October the 18th, 2022 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of this meeting. Number one, voluntary recognition date, time, and location. There was a discussion around that, and from that, the Parks and Recreation and Culture recommends the council approve to host the East Hants Municipal Volunteer Recognition and Firefighter Long Service Awards on April 21st, 2023 at the Mount Uniacke Legion. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Councillor Hebb. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. And the motion has passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you. Shubenacadie River Park funding request. On October the 4th, 2022, a fire damaged the stage washroom structure at the Shubenacadie River Park. Due to the extent of the damage and the current condition of the remaining structure, the building requires demolition with fence reinstatement and moving of the existing electrical panel for the ball field lights to be used. So from that, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends that council approve funding the estimated cost of up to $13,000 of the building structure demolition and electrical repairs to move the ball field light panel from year-end surplus, if available, or the Parks and Trails Reserve Fund, if not. As chairman of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you. And from that also, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends the council direct staff to bring back a report on insurance for the municipal assets throughout the municipalities, options for replacement costs, and different insurance options moving forward before the next budget. As chair of the committee, I do so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. Excuse me. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion has carried. Okay, next we have, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on October 18th, 2022 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of the meeting. Number 1, snow clearing contracts. The Infrastructure and Operation Committee recommends that council extend the road winter maintenance contract with Basin Contracting for a 6-year at rate negotiated with the vendor by the CAO, and that council approve an additional $50,000 for the road budget to be monitored under existing budget monitoring policies to be funded by the Transportation Snow Clearing Roads Reserve. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Musa.
Thank you. The Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommends that council extend the sidewalks winter maintenance contract with Elmsdale Landscaping for a 6th year at rate negotiated with the vendor by the CAO, and that council approve an additional $70,000 for the sidewalk budget to be monitored under existing budget monitoring policies to be funded by the Urban Service Rate Snow Removal Sidewalks Reserve. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Musa.
Thank you. Item number 2, Enfield Water Treatment Plant Construction Budget. The detailed design of the expansion has been completed, and the consultant has submitted a cost estimate. It is anticipated that the current budget will not be sufficient, and staff are recommending a 30% increase based on an increase in construction costs. The Infrastructure and Operation Committee recommend that council increase the total budget for project 20-038 Enfield Water Treatment Plant upgrade to $3,056,950, with the additional $856,150 to be funded between the Water Depreciation Reserve and the Infrastructure Reserve. As chair of the committee, I so move.
You have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded by Counselor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Musa.
Item number 3, organic processing contract. The current organic processing contract will expire March 31st, 2023. A request for proposals was issued and one proposal was received. The Infrastructure and Operation Committee recommends that council approve the award of the compostable organics material processing contract RFP 50507 to Green for Life Environmental for a 3-year term effective April 1st, 2023. As a chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Musa.
Thank you. The Infrastructure and Operation Committee recommends that council request a report be brought back outlining organic processing options that could be considered for after this current contract term, April 2026. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Do we have, seconded by Counselor Perry. Is there any discussion on the report, on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Musa.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Next, we have the East Hants Source Water Protection Committee report. Councillor Eisner, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Ward. The committee held its regular meeting on October the 6th, 22 via Zoom. The following motions are coming forward as a result of the meeting. Number 1, blue-green algae in Grand Lake. There was a presentation and discussion of the presence of cyanobacteria in Fish Lake by Dr. Rob Jenkins and Lindsay Johnson, Department of Civic and Resource Engineering in Dalhousie. Their research focused on the presence of cyanobacteria mats in the uncovered stream between the Fish Lake and Grand Lake and factors that influence their growth. It was noted that the culvert that separates Fish Lake and Grand Lake was an obvious factor contributing to the growth of cyanobacteria in the stream. The Source Water Protection Advisory Committee recommends the Council to send correspondence to the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works requesting the replacement of the culvert that separates Fish Lake and Grand Lake to become a bridge structure versus a culvert as a direct action to mitigate the growth of cyanobacteria, which has been the main area of blue algae concerns for Grand Lake over the last several years, and to continue with the advocate ongoing direct to the province where provincial structural change within right-of-way could mitigate the formation and growth of cyanobacteria and blue-green algae. As chair of the committee, I so move. Through the discussion with the
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Perry. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
Through the discussion with the presenter and the committee, it was also determined that since baseline research has already been conducted, it would be prudent to conduct a water quality study post-replacement of the culvert connecting Fish Lake and Grand Lake. The Source Water Protection Advisory Committee recommends to Council to advocate the province to complete a water quality study focusing on cyanobacteria after any further replacement of the culverts within the road right of way that drains from Fish Lake. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. We need one more person to vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Eisner.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Number 2, potential partnership to study Grand Lake water quality. Staff also updated the committee on potential partnership to conduct research in and around Grand Lake and how these partnerships can assist to further advance source water protection programming. The Source Water Protection Advisory Committee recommends the Council to seek out funding and academic partnership to complete studies on water quality within the Grand Lake watershed, both for the near-term work as well as an ongoing approach to building source water protection programming. As chair of committee, I so move.
We have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor Eisner.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion has carried. This brings us to first reading of bylaw F-100-8, an amendment to bylaw F-100, local improvement charges bylaw. Over to you, Deputy Warden Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. At the October 18th Executive Committee meeting, the Manager of Accounting presented a report and draft bylaw as a result of the road gap paving project approved by Council in February. The Corporate Residential Services Committee recommends the Council give first reading to bylaw F-100-8, an amendment to bylaw F-100, local improvement charges bylaw, to include the road gap paving project local improvements. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Jesse, just a question, like for the, I know it's outside this motion, but for the provincial road, is there any betterment, like any improvement charges too, or?
Through you, Madam Warden. There are charges, there are different charges structures on the road gap project depending on what type of road an individual would be on. And so let me rephrase that. So there's 3 tiers of cost, and the cost for the project itself is blended into 3 buckets. There's 3 different buckets based on a determination or categories created by staff on how much groups of individuals would benefit. The cost per area, it's really blended across everything on an average basis. So everyone that would be part of the program would be paying equability versus the other, regardless of whether you're on a municipal or provincial road. The cost is associated as one project blended across all and paid by those 3 categories based on your benefit of the project, not depending on whether you're on a municipal or provincial road.
Let me probably, I didn't phrase it good. Like, so if you have a provincial road and there's a petition to pave it, is there, like, if the petition went through and somebody have piece of land that he subdivided after the petition went on, so is there any way to put like
I think I
improvement charges on?
understand your question, Councillor Musa, but the motion on the floor is to one specific situation
Yeah.
right now, not to
Okay, I'll ask it
others.
later. I'll ask it later then.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, that brings us to the warden's report. I'll turn the chair over to you, Deputy Warden. I have a very informal report jotted down because I forgot to write it out before I got here this evening. So
Go
bear
ahead,
with
Warden.
me, and I apologize if I've forgotten anything. On October the 2nd, I attended a 92nd birthday party for Mrs. Elsie Bond and presented her with a certificate as COVID had somewhat prevented her from celebrating as she wished for her 90th birthday. On the 2nd of October, I attended the grand opening of the Hants North Food Bank. It went well. Quite a crowd of people attended in spite of the fact that the facility was still without power after Hurricane Fiona. I attended the assorted directors meeting and workshops, as did other counselors. On the 22nd, I attended the Rawdon Fire Department's banquet in honor of celebrating their 50th anniversary, although it was really year 51, but they couldn't have their 50th last year because of COVID. Had a lovely roast beef dinner that was prepared by the Knoll Fire Department, and it was a very nice evening. Last evening, I attended the Business Excellence Awards and banquet for the Chamber of Commerce. It was a very enjoyable evening. Some staff were there as well. An excellent keynote speaker, and I found that a broad variety of businesses were represented. I would like to congratulate not only all the winners in the various categories, but all of the nominees, because it just goes to show what a strong business community we do have in this area. So at this point in time, this would conclude my report. Back to you.
Thank you, Warden. Back to you.
Thank you. So next, we will go to business from counselors, and we will start with Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I don't have too much to report this month. About the only outside meeting I had this month was to assist the Lance Beautification Society remove their baskets from the telephone poles in Lance this month. Had a few inquiries from the fire department again about the status of what's going to happen with the former school site in Lance. Obviously, the fire department is quite interested in a new fire department being located at that site. I'm just scrolling through some of the things. I had questions about garbage and litter, more questions about garbage and litter in my district the past month than previous months. Some of them I brought to the attention of council. Most people I find are pretty good about litter and garbage around their properties, but there are obviously some people that are not. Ton of interactions, but that's about all I have to report this month.
Thank you. Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I just want to thank the volunteer fire department for trying to revive my nephew's daughter, 4 years old, but they couldn't. They tried everything, but we lost her. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Musa, and I know I speak for all of council as we extend our sympathy to your family's very, very sad loss. Next, Counselor Green. And your mic is not working again. I will turn on the one next to you.
I have nothing to report until I get a mic that works.
Thank you. Deputy Warden Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The first of the month on October 6th, there was a meeting of the Pockwalk Watershed Management Committee. We met to discuss the impact on the watershed and the surrounding cut plots based upon the reaction to Fiona. The Department of Natural Resources and Renewables is looking further into the selective cutting procedure, because it seems like where they did thin cutting, most of those trees were taken out because in the area of a shallow soil location and on bedrock. So they might be adjusting the way that they do some of their cutting practices, and that's going to be looked at across the province. Some of the aerial photos that were shown really did hit home some of the devastation that was caused in the woods by Fiona, and the Pockwalk watershed adjacent to Mount Uniacke was on the outer edge. So those who were even more greatly affected, I can only imagine. We had a library board meeting in the middle of the month. Things are going well at the library. There's lots of upcoming changes and increased programming. The summer reading program report was back. It was a huge success throughout the whole region, and especially in Elmsdale and Mount Uniacke. There was quite a few children who took up the reading and posted some very impressive numbers. I had the opportunity to meet with the Girl Guides in Mount Uniacke. They brought me in to ask me about how to make a difference in their community and what's the process they go through to institute change and who they contact for what things. So I had a great evening with them. A bunch of very, actually it was the Girl Guides and Pathfinders combined. A bunch of very bright and smart young women, young ladies, and I look forward to seeing what they move forward with, because they definitely had some great ideas. Other than that, as said by the warden, it's been, it was a difficult time in the community, and the whole community does feel for the Musa family. One last thing before I should go before that. Just in today, the Uniacke District School Wolves, both girls and boys soccer team, made a brave charge at regionals, making the final, and both coming away with the silver medals. So congratulations to them on their achievements. And that's all I have at this time, Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor McPhee. And your mic does not appear to be working either.
Appear to. There it is. Thank you, Warden. Yes, I'll be a little longer because I was absent from the last regular meeting, so I'd just like to first comment on the slowdown. We love our children's signs. We've distributed 17 of them in the village of Shubenacadie, and I do believe they're having some effect. I seem to notice that traffic is a little slower in those areas. People in Shuby, of course, are very happy to see the sewage treatment plant has finally begun to be constructed, and that offers quite a bit of hope for the for development in the village, which has been held up by our lack of sewage water treatment ability. Oh yes, some residents had brought me some concerns that were actually with Public Works, the provincial department, but I was able to contact them and get an assurance from that the issues would be dealt with, and some of them have been dealt with already. So I thank the staff at P&W Public Works for helping us out. And on 17th of September, of course, the Shubenacadie District Fire Brigade held their 60th anniversary banquet. I'd like to congratulate them again on 60 years of great service to the community. It was a very enjoyable time. Attended with Warden Ralston and Councillor Rhino. We had a lovely meal. I was able to present them with a certificate of recognition from the municipality. And I'd like to point out that it was emceed by Mr. Jeff Vanderreet. He did an excellent job. It was quite entertaining. Gave us a few laughs and a bit of history on the department. And it was kind of nice to hear some of the names of residents that founded the department that are, of course, have passed away now, and also see some of the older members that were able to make it to the banquet. As we all know, Fiona came in, and District 4 didn't have as heavy a damage as other areas in the province, but we were without power until Wednesday for some of us, and till Friday, Saturday for many of the other residents. Very happy with the work the crews did. I got to talk to some of them. I saw them when they first came into the area. Unfortunately, that was at 1930 hours on Tuesday. Wish they'd been able to come to our part of the province a little earlier to at least do an assessment. Maybe some of us could get our power back quicker. The crews did an excellent job once they were there, and I was a bit disappointed in that basically central mainland Nova Scotia was abandoned because on Friday morning before Fiona hit, NSB had announced that they would not be coming to central mainland Nova Scotia until at least Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. Very disappointed that they would plan things that way, that we possibly could have hit our power back quicker. But anyway, hopefully they'll plan things differently. The McGinnis Trail was hit for about 500 meters. We had a lot of trees down. It's a popular walking area within District 4, and I'd like to commend the members of the Shubenacadie Community Development Association and others who came out and helped clear the walking trail and get it open again. And again, I'd like to mention Jeff Vanderreet for a great job. He came out and got things cut up so we could get them moved, and really appreciate Jeff's work there and everybody's work. And the Shubenacadie Park, River Park, people know, of course, there was a fire. Glad to see that we're moving ahead with the demolition, and hope we can get some plans to replace the concession areas and the stage by next year anyway. And also some people that use the pickleball court, they appreciate the new pickleball court, but had mentioned that it's very windy there. Also, you need a fence to keep, so you don't have to run after the ball so much, I guess it is. And also, the ball's very light, so they need some protection against the wind that is there. So I have sent that on to Director Alana Tapper, and she's aware of the request. Hopefully we can get something done by next year to make that a more useful site. And I can see that work continues on the development of the river park, so sure anybody I've spoken to in Shubenacadie seems to be very happy with the progress. That's all I have to report.
Counselor Head.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a whole lot going on in District 3. I know the Naima River Trails had a number of trees and stuff down there, and the last report I got, they were putting it all opened up. There's still a fair amount of work to be done there, but they're kind of slack of volunteers at the moment. So, but they are doing great work there, and I think before long it'll be all back opened up, if it isn't already right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Eisner.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Most of the conversations were with the water source, Grand Lake and the river. It's just the quality, I guess. Most people are kind of complaining about that. Also, I just worked with the crew from Fredericton on the Fiona storm. These guys were, they were to the road in front of me. We were cutting along there, and I was just helping, assisting them. They just shut off the power, pulled the plug so I could cut my trees, and they were there for a couple of days. But I said, how far do you guys travel? And he said, we go as far as Florida. So they're probably gone now. But anyways, that's about it. Thank you.
Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. A few items from District 2. I'll start off with on October the 7th, the FCM Zoom. We had a Zoom meeting on anti-racism and equity. On October the 12th, the library board met via Zoom, and things are going well in all the branches. On October the 20th, we had a book reading at the Elmsdale Library with Laszlo Lichter. It was very interesting and enjoyable about his life growing up. The next item deals with the Provincial Volunteer Awards, which were scheduled for Monday, September the 26th, but because of Hurricane Fiona, the awards are rescheduled for November the 7th at the Albany Landing. So the question I'm sending out is, what is council's wish, that I attend, or is the new deputy interested in attending? I have the 2 tickets from Ticket Pro, which was planned for that date on the 26th, but that was something that I was doing as a deputy warden, so.
You had the tickets and plan to attend. Counselor Mitchell, Deputy Warden, has told me that he's quite comfortable with you continuing to represent us there.
Okay. Thank you. I will continue to do that. The last item deals with the easement that the Elms Department has granted to the municipality for the active transportation, but my question to staff is that on the trail, there's one fencing on one side, which is the side next to the Elmsville Fire Department, but there's no planned fencing for the other side, which is next to the waterway. My hope is that there'll be fencing on both sides for safety reasons.
Yeah, through you, Madam Warden. So the easement agreement that we have drafted, actually, I think I saw a signed copy today from the fire department. We'll be processing it internally for final execution. Did speak to what you just said. It has a fence on the one side. When it comes time to build out the trail and install the fence, we will do a risk assessment on it and look at that time where the final placement of the trail is going and how far from that drainage ditch is. And if there is a risk there, that will absolutely be part of the conversation at staff level. Miss Lana Tapper and her team will be looking after that when the trail does go. I think we're still quite a few years out from that, so we will do the assessment once we have the final placement located.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I on?
Okay.
Truth and Reconciliation Day was on September 30th. I attended the event held at the old residential school site in Shubenacadie. There were numerous informative presentations going on, and the orange tribute heart erected on the field was amazing. So all in all, it was a really moving place to be on that day. I've attended numerous meetings this month, including a CCOA board meeting. They are very busy, as they always are, but especially as they prepare to embark on their new build. And on that note, Corridor Community Options Disability Pride Day took place on Saturday, October 15th. It was a huge success. It started with a march that ended at the CCOA location in Enfield. There were a lot of activities and an impressive turnout with almost 200 people in attendance. So very, very well attended and something to look forward to on an annual basis. I've spoken with numerous residents over the course of the month. And I just want to bring up the topic of the topic that I'm constantly bringing up of the speeding in the White Estates area, especially on Tyler Street. When I asked the councillors to familiarize himself with this development at the top of this subdivision, it was so you would get a visual on what was once a quiet residential area and has now become somewhat and will increasingly become somewhat of a throughway from a busy new development down through Tyler Street to get out to the number 2 highway. This is a real problem for them. And, you know, there's no sidewalks in that subdivision. And I just don't feel that, you know, having a look at this and looking at a solution for this a couple of years down the road is going to do it for them. As I said before, you know, we approved that development at the top of that subdivision, and the folks are feeling the effects of it now, and that's going to increase. And I would like to make a motion that staff report or do a report on possible traffic calming measures for the Tyler Street White Estates area with the intent to include it for consideration to include those measures in consideration for the upcoming 2023 budget.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Green. The CAO has asked to speak. Over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Madam Warden, there is a report that is forthcoming. The director has been working on a report on traffic calming, not specifically for just Tyler Street and White Road, but traffic calming is a topic of conversation for council to get into. There is a motion on council's list of motions to bring that forward. I think it stemmed from one of the Mount Uniacke councillors bringing it forward. We have been short-staffed in our transportation staff over the last few months. Otherwise, that report would have been here before now. So my apologies for that. But Jesse has been working quite diligently to get that report put together. And once that report comes to council, there will be options laid out for the specific areas that we know are issues. That would be one of those areas. And there will be timelines in the report, depending on how fast council wants to react and how many resources you want to put towards the solutions. Then we would incorporate those into next year's budget.
Thank you, CAO. Back to you, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden, through you. So when I questioned this at our last month's meeting, I was under the impression that this would not be, that yes, this is going on, that this is in the process of happening, but that this would not be anything that would be considered in the next year's budget. Is that correct? Or other than the three-way stops, which are just waiting for signs? Maybe I'm mistaken.
CAO, sorry.
Through Madam Warden, the previous update highlighted the budget for three-way stop signs in White Estates has already been approved, just waiting for install. So that's in motion, and that's going to be phase one. What was articulated last meeting was that the highlight of the report, it would be in three phases. Timing of when different things could happen are dependent on when the report can get done. That said, is every single councillor actually has been sought out for feedback on part of that, and we're already alluding to a staff of potentially spending money next fiscal as the first phase of implementation. So that would be in the table. That's not necessarily what the comments weren't on for a solution that would apply to White Estates, but the next chapter in the report would deal with that. I don't want to. Well, sure. So the next so yeah. So just in the report, I'll spoiler alert, if you will. There's going to be a recommendation for speed humps on Tyler Street. Like that's going to be in there. So just I haven't wrote it yet, but that's what's going in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Garden-Cole.
Well, I will respond to that, just because I do think that that we can all agree, if we've familiarized ourselves with it, that they are in a kind of a unique situation on Tyler Street. And yeah, I was looking for something coming up, and I guess that's coming up more. Coming up quicker than what I was thinking it was going to. So on that note, I'm going to, did I actually word that as in I was planning on making that motion, or did I make it? I made it, and you seconded it. So
with the agreement of a seconder, councillor, you could withdraw the motion pending reception of this report if you wished, or...
okay, so I'm going to withdraw the motion pending the report that's coming up.
Not agreed with the seconder? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Garden-Cole?
No, that's everything from District 1. Thank you.
Councillor Rhino.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden. It was a busy month for me. I'd like to mention that I presented on behalf of the municipality a 50th wedding anniversary certificate to Jean and Bob Hartland of Salma. They were very appreciative and had a nice chat and a nice evening. I would like to also mention that I attended the ball field closing at the Hants North Baseball Association. And just for an item of interest, if anybody knows, I do a lot of umpiring out there, and I donated all my fees back to the association. The association has good news. They had won the association baseball association of the year, and they were in, I think, last Saturday night to collect some hardware. And the Hants North Baseball Association also had female athlete of the year in the 13 and under category, and the winner of that was McHale Fields. McHale lives in Brookfield, but all of her family lives in around South Maitland area, and we're very proud of McHale and the association for having the great people they do to make that such a wonderful organization. Just a note on last weekend past, our Hants North Rural High School, they went to the baseball provincials and they come home with silver, and they were in the finals and they had a great game. Must have been some game. They lost 2-1. So that was held down in Yarmouth for. So congratulations to those young people on that. As I said, it was a busy evening or a busy month. I'd like to apologize to the food bank that I could not attend their opening because I was running around and dealing with power and communications and meeting with people on issues with regard to the storm of Hurricane Fiona. And building on what Councillor McPhee had said, there's a lot of problems that have come up with Fiona and Nova Scotia Power. I'm going to mention a few. Things such as these robocalls telling them that the power is going to be back by a certain date, and then it's not back, and people were getting very frustrated with these robocalls. They did not like them at all. Also, we had arguments on behalf with the operators of whoever answers the phone for Nova Scotia Power, arguing with our residents, saying their power was on and when it wasn't. And I didn't think that was very professional at all, because why would you call if your power was on to say your power was out? So there's issues such as that. We had other issues with regard to fleets of trucks being parked at the rec center in Truro with no communication and no guidance, and sat there for hours upon hours upon hours while people were without power, and that was totally frustrating for them. I did travel around my district, and I talked to a few businesses to see what they had lost. Some lost up to over $125,000. Some lost some tourist things. They lost 5 to 6 days of bookings. There was the store lost all their meat. They lost and had damage in the storm on the building itself, and it was that storm did a number. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to throw this out there, and maybe staff can help me with it. I'm wondering if there's going to be a debrief with regard to Fiona with Nova Scotia Power, or maybe we should have it with our MLA or have it with somebody, because I'd like to bring these issues that have come up so they're heard with somebody, and in preparation for the next storm that comes along, that we might improve some of these things that have happened, because it's just some of these things. It's not the linemen it's the middle management and how they handle things out there. We have questions for, and it's quite frustrating. And I still today have a senior citizen, 86 years old, without a landline telephone. She doesn't have a cell phone. She only has a landline, and the company Bell has just been putting this off, and to me that's inexcusable, and it's still going on today. So you know, I throw it out there, can staff arrange something for a debrief from counselors, or would anybody interested in that? Because I do believe that these concerns have to get passed on to Nova Scotia Power and Bell with regard to what our residents experienced in Fiona. So I'd like to hear a response.
Thank you, Counselor. The CAO wishes to address that.
Through you, Madam Warden. We will be debriefing internally on Fiona. And Kelly, who is our EMO coordinator, will be working with the province and can provide any feedback back through our EMO coordinator, Dominic Fuhr. So what I would suggest is if counselors do have feedback that they want to give that they saw in their local community, we would gladly take that and forward it along. If you want to send us an email with the sort of specific details that we can capture, or if you wanted to sit down with Kelly at some point and she can capture all the information that you want to share. I'm not sure we would get the ear of Nova Scotia Power, but I know the province will, and I know the provincial government is very interested in holding them to task. So I think that's probably the proper channel, is to take it through Kelly and through to the province. So if you do have specific sort of addresses, situations, examples, those are the kinds of things that really get attention paid to them. And we would gladly take those within the next week or so, and then be able to have those conversations on behalf of council at those tables. I don't know if John has anything to add.
Thank you, Warden. Just for the lady who still doesn't have phone service, if you want to contact Kelly tomorrow and give her those details, she can push that up through EMO Nova Scotia.
Already been there.
We've had good experience in the past, I guess, when we do that, push things through EMO Nova Scotia to get to whether it's Nova Scotia Power or one of the telephone providers. And this does sound like one of those unique cases where there's no other means of communication that it might, anyway, that if you're able to, then I would pass that along and we'll move it up to EMO.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Rhino.
Like I said, all due respect, already been there. Been to the MLA, been to the EMO, been to everything. Have contacted them. She's on a priority list, but that priority list has lasted this long. And to me, this is unexcusable. I'm just wondering, I hear what the CAO is saying, but with respect, I guess the question would it be better, maybe better to have Dominic Fuhr come in and hear our concerns so that he could run that up the chain faster than that? I don't know if the rest of the councillors would be willing, but could that be a possibility?
Not speaking for the rest of council, but there is a chain and a way that EMO works and a time. So I'm not sure that I'm not sure if that would work any better than the established chain of command and chain of communication that's already existing. I don't know what other councillors feel. I have great faith in Kelly that she will forward any and all concerns that we have to Dominic. And I think having those concerns funneled through one official representative of our EMO committee might perhaps get us more traction than 11 reports from 11 of us being flown up the flagpole, so to speak. That's just my opinion. Not sure what other councillors might think. I see no one lighting up the board. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully agree with you. I think there's a chain of command there, and I think that's what our representative for EMO was there for, and I think that's probably the best avenue for us to take. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing no one else, I'm going to assume that the majority are okay with that. If not, now's the time to speak. Seeing no one, back to you, Counselor Rhino. Anything further?
Well, having heard that, I guess I'll handle this myself then, and I'll to be speaking with EMO, voice my concerns on behalf of District 5. Thank you very much on that. And I'd like to commend staff for helping me with an issue. They did a great job with regard to a cattle issue in District 5, and our staff went above and beyond with regard to that. Right now, I guess that's about all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Rhino. That concludes business from counselors. Next on our agenda is an in-camera session to discuss CAO priorities. So I would be looking for a motion to move in camera. Moved by Counselor Green, seconded by Counselor Musa. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. We'll allow staff a few minutes to priorities. There are no motions coming forward from that session. So I would be looking for a motion to set the date and time of our next council meetings, November 15th, 2022 for a regular meeting of council, for policy, and November 23rd, 2022 for the regular meeting of council.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Green, seconded by Councilor Mitchell. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Hibbs, seconded by Councilor Green. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion is carried. We are